Hi, Standers. This is Sheila Hollinger with Marriage Revealed Ministries, and today we are going to do another question and answer. I'm hoping to get through quite a bit of these, so just pray I don't get off track and spend too much time on one question. I have a tendency to do that. So let's dive right in. The first question is about what being snared, what being in bondage looks like. Does that mean that a person that is in bondage has no control over their actions, where they hang out, what they do? So let's dive into that question. So what a bondage is usually that there's something first, there has to be a void, there has to be a need, there has to be an area in a person's life that they are struggling in, that they're missing something. Something creates this gaping hole, right? Because the enemy comes in and snares a person, creates a trap. We don't just walk into traps. We don't just become snared. We don't just hand ourselves over to these places unless it's giving us something. And what you're getting out of it is usually something that becomes so valuable to you that you can't get out of it. You are, you're snared by it. It's, let's just say it's an alcohol addiction. Okay. People that become dependent on alcohol it's a bondage because, first of all, they're using alcohol as a coping, and then not only that, so you've got the mental coping, right? The escape. You've also got now a physical bondage. So if you look at bondages as just a place that people have a need and something that they are addicted to or snared by, creates a place of whatever that is. Like maybe it might be a place where they feel loved, they feel accepted, they feel peace, they feel no pressure from the world. It's, these are places, snares are places where you get trapped in, it's a fake thing. It's not a real thing. So, one of the things that happens is someone who cannot handle responsibility. They're just overwhelmed. They don't know how to fix what's broken, right? They will find a place that will provide some peace, some escape from that. And if that means going and hanging out with a bunch of other people who are doing the same exact thing, they can't handle life. They don't know how to fix life. They don't know how they got into that place. And now you've got a group of people hanging out, and they're all kind of like forming a strong support system for that. They're making it sound like it's okay to be here. They might even talk about some of the issues that's going on while they're together in this place. So he's getting something out of that place. He's going to that, situation repeatedly because it's providing him something. And that's why people get snared. They get into these bondages because, they don't know what else to do. They haven't yet turned over their will. They haven't surrendered their will to God. They haven't said, you know what? Year after year, I've been coming back to this place, and I might find a little relief, temporary. But like you said, it's been years, and he's still going to this place. And they start to wake up and they start to realize, have I really overcome? Have I really fixed whatever's going on? And so that's why these bars, these hangouts, these places, they become a real addiction, a real snare, a real escape, a real place for them to cope. But eventually it runs dry. Sometimes they'll just go once and then they think, okay, well, that worked. I need to go back. And the next thing they know, they're stuck there and they can't live their life anywhere but in that bondage. And that does take a toll on them. So God has ways, reaping and sowing. And these are supposed to, provide a place where someone keeps sowing and sowing and sowing into situation, and the reaping is not what they're actually looking for. Because when you're sowing, you're actually wanting to reap that living water, that place of connection with God. And you're not. You're getting counterfeit. You're getting broken cisterns, which are, places where people dig wells to get water, instead of getting real living water from a real stream, right? God provides real living water. And we dig in places that we shouldn't be. And we create these broken cisterns that are, not holding water. But we take what we can get. And we know we're not getting the real thing. We know we're not getting the right thing. But it's going to give us just enough water to sustain us for a very, very short time. And so, the woman at the well, she knew when she walked up and Jesus said to her, if you knew who I was, you would be asking me for a drink and you would never go thirsty again. And the first thing she heard was, tell me how to get this water so I don't have to do this anymore. She was tired. She was tired of having to make this trip repeatedly to come and get water. I mean, in the heat of the day, she wasn't allowed to go with the other women. I believe I read that somewhere, is because of her situation. She wasn't allowed to go draw water with the other women in the village. She had to go in a different time of day by herself, and it was a long trek. So when Jesus said to her, offered her living water, her whole thing was like, wait, I won't have to walk this walk anymore. I won't have to come and do this lonely, shame-filled walk. So, that's what she heard. She didn't understand and grasp what God was really saying, but it touched on her physical pain, her physical exhaustion, her physical torment, her need of wanting to get out of being ashamed, wanting to get out of this situation where, she was in. And so that's what the snare, it does. It puts you in a place where you are, tired of walking that walk every day. It's tiring, it's exhausting, and it's not something that our physical self wants to do. And so we will sometimes open our hearts to God and only hear, just like the woman at the well did. She heard, wait, I don't have to do this physical toil anymore. Tell me how to get this water. And so that's usually how God will open someone's heart and mind to him. He will address and offer a way out to the physical pain first, to the torment of the physical shame, the guilt, the condemnation, because that's the most pressing thing most often to someone. They want the relief from that. And then comes all the rest, the spiritual, the relationship, everything that comes with it will come later. So, there's reasons people get snared, and then God has ways of setting them free. So I hope that answered some of your question that you had going on here about the physical bondage. They're getting something out of it. And until that no longer gives them what they're getting, they'll keep going back into that bondage. So the next question is in regards to being focused on God can't give back something that a spouse has missed out on. And so I want to address this question, because when I was praying over it, I was like, Lord, that's a really good question. Your spouse has missed out on your child's first years. They've missed out on this. They've missed out on that. And what the Lord showed me was, if you're so focused on that bothering you, right? That's really bothering you, and you're hung up on that to the point where you're saying, Lord, this, and one of the things that I was seeing about this was that we form all these questions. We form all of these questions that become our pain. There were several questions. Well, the enemy stole. How am I going to get back what he stole? How is my spouse going to get back on many things that they missed out on? And so what I felt the Lord was saying, it wasn't so much about the questions, because we can take anything and create such a situation for ourselves that becomes so painful that that's all we want to do is focus on. Well, I missed Christmas with my spouse, and because of that, I'm going to stay in pain now the rest of my life because of that one holiday, and I can't give that pain up. So you see where I'm trying to go with that? God could come in and wipe that pain out where you no longer it doesn't even bother you anymore. You're healed from it. You've let it go. You've said, yes, I missed that Christmas, and it is what it is, and I no longer have that pain from that anymore. God has healed me. He's set me free. So that was one of the things that I saw, is that sometimes we hold on to situations that cause us pain, and we just really hold them, and we don't want to move on. We want to stay stuck in that place, and we want to say, this was a wrong that happened. My husband missed a holiday. My husband or my wife missed a birthday, especially if it's a meaningful, like the first birthday. They miss out the first, steps. They miss out on a lot of stuff. And now you stay stuck in that place of, I'm not letting this go. This was just too much, and I will never forgive you for missing out, or I will never let myself be healed from this. We have to be really careful about the bondages that we put ourselves into, because, you have one person that said, let's just say you have two people. One person goes through it differently because they're willing to let it go. They're willing to say, you know what? This was the season. And I'll tell you, everybody goes through loss. Everybody goes through loss during these storms. Some are incredibly painful. I had 3 children in my storm. I'm not having any more kids. So I did not have, I don't even want to speak this out, because it doesn't matter anymore. I am not letting what happened to me in the past rob my future. I'm not doing it. So for me to even say I missed out on what other women sometimes get, a beautiful pregnancy, a supportive spouse, a joy of your, did I have that 3 times, 3 pregnancies? Did I spend my pregnancies crying? Yes. Because my spouse wasn't around? Yes. But I'm not going back there. There's no reason to. I'm living now in my moment. I'm living now in the future, and that's what I'm focused on. And I'm not going back to looking at the past and letting it steal from me anymore. Yes, it was painful. Yes, God healed me. Have I forgiven? Absolutely. Because if I don't forgive what was lost, it's going to rob me of what I can get. So I want you to be really careful about being stuck in a place where you saying, look at what I've lost. Look at what I've lost. Look what you've lost. Look what you've created. Together we've lost. We've lost. We've lost. That loss can become so great that now it's stealing from your future. Now it's stealing from what you're getting now. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not doing that. I refuse to go back and say, this is what I lost, and I'm going to be bitter over it, and I'm going to wallow in that place of, look what you did and look what you caused us to lose. How long are you going to stay stuck in that pain? Let it go, forgive, move on, or your whole life will be nothing but loss, 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 because loss unhealed and unforgiven breeds more loss. Okay? The next question is about witnessing to your spouse. That is, since we don't create rules And because men and women are different, they're created different. They have different needs, right? A woman is created to need to be secure. She's created to be led. She's created to, how she looks at her husband is different from how a man is created to be respected. How a man is created to shelter and protect his wife. A woman is created to have a role of a helpmeet. So there is no one-size-fits-all answer when it's, do you reach out to your spouse? If a man is needing that distance, he's needing to learn how to live his life. He's needing to learn how to be in control of his life. He is learning all these things. And his wife is doing the same thing she was doing while they were together. She's stepping into his role. She's bossing him around. She's trying to lead him. She's trying to control him. Now he leaves and he's trying to take control of his life. Be responsible. Even though that looks sinful, it looks horrible, he's still taking control of his life. He's still making his own decisions. Right? He's learning reaping and sowing. You sow, you reap consequences. Maybe his wife never let that happen. Okay, that was me. I was always in there cleaning up, never letting my husband have any type of situation where he, sowed and then reaped. And so you've got a wife who's now trying to control him and boss him around while he's outside, and that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So on the opposite of that, you've got a husband who, let's just say he wasn't leading his wife. He wasn't paying attention to her, and her needs weren't being met. She didn't feel loved. She felt ignored. She felt neglected spiritually, emotionally, whatever. She didn't feel validated. Whatever the reasons that created this gaping hole in her, that, she went looking for someone else to fill that void. Okay? Now God is saying, you need to step up and you need to do these things that you weren't doing. That can happen. We're saying, the role of man and woman that God created are different. So you cannot make a standing rule that says you're not allowed to talk to your spouse. You're not allowed to reach out. You're not allowed to do that. That's just something that you have to go moment by moment, person by person, because in the very beginning, no, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. And then God says, okay, it's time. It's time for you, husband, standing husband, to now reach out. Your wife needs that communication with you. So if you make a rule or you go by standing rules that we're not allowed to do that, you could miss out. There are no rules. The only thing you need to do is follow the leading of the Holy Spirit. Okay, so that is really, really important. Okay, so the next one that I want to talk about, and this is a situation that I see rarely, not often, but rarely, and that is the husband or the wife. Usually it's been a husband. Okay, so all the situations I have seen have been a husband who doesn't want to let the wife go, wants to live either at home or live at the other woman's place, but they don't want a divorce. They want to stay married. They want to keep the I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say affairs. They want to keep the marriage and the affair going. And this goes on for year after year after year after year. And if you cross them, if you step in and try to say, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, then they're just go live it on you. And they set you right back in your place. This situation is different from a spouse who says, I'm done, I don't love you anymore, I'm leaving, I can't be married to you, and they want out. Okay, this is a spouse who doesn't want out. They want to have both. and they want to put you in a situation where they're telling you, this is how it is. I want both, and you need to be okay with this, and nothing is ever going to change. Now, they may say other things to you, like, oh, this is just temporary. This is just, I want both relationships, and this is how it is for just a season. They may say that to you, but their intention is they're going to have both. This is a completely different situation than a spouse who is seriously trying to get out of the snare, and they know that it's not working, and you know it's not working, and they're just refusing at the time to be set free from God by going to God. So did I live in a situation where God was telling me that my spouse was, he was snared? Did he want out? Yes, I saw it. I saw the effort. I saw him trying to get out of it. Now, there are some times that the stander sees that the spouse is trying to get out of it, but then they just go right back into saying, you know what, this is what it is, and if you can't deal with it, then we're going to have to divorce. We're going to, and they again put fear in you. They put worry in you, and you remain stuck year after year after year in situations. This is one of the situations that is it's not the norm. It's not, boy, I don't even like to use the word norm, but this is a different situation. And a lot of times the standing community will say, oh, don't ever leave your spouse. Don't ever separate. Don't ever do that, because once you tell them to leave, once you end that relationship, or once you go no contact, or you'll never get that back. I get why that's said. I do, and I should go into that, but I'm not going to do that right now. But this is a different situation. This is a situation where a spouse would probably most likely be content staying in this place. They have no desire to change. And they can be very manipulative. There could be a lot of other things going on, and you might need to do what's out of the ordinary. Okay, you most likely need to remove yourself from the situation under God's guidance. And a lot of times what I have seen, okay, and this is really sad, but this is what I have seen. I've seen a wife completely, she's not getting better. In fact, she's getting worse. In the situation, she's losing herself. She's being controlled. She's being manipulated. She's completely losing herself to the manipulation and the control. And God has been probably most likely speaking to her, trying to gently guide her and direct her out of that situation the whole time, but she's never been strong enough. And then she comes into a community of standers who, again, unfortunately, the rule, I wish you could see my little air quotes, is never, remove yourself, never kick them out, or never separate, or whatever the rule is, right? Live there, stay with them. Once you leave them, it's so impossible to get them back. This is why we don't create rules, because what it does is it puts someone who should have separated, okay? It puts a certain person, certain situations, it puts them more in bondage. It puts them more in harm's way. So you've got a woman who should have stepped away, now staying in a situation that's causing her way more harm. My situation might have looked like that, where my husband was trying to have both relationships going, but there was not this level of control and manipulation. He wasn't trying to force me to be okay with it. He knew, and he said it over and over. I know what my husband, I know most often his mental capacity. He was never okay with having two relationships going. It was either, he knew it was either one or the other. He just didn't know how to get out of the one. I'm talking about a spouse who thinks it's okay and wants to blame you and say, this other woman she's fine. She's willing to share me, but you're the problem. You're the one that's not letting this love triangle continue. And they try to guilt you and make you feel really bad for that, especially if that other woman has a child. And your husband might lie to you and say to you, oh, well, I just go over there for the child, but he's gone the whole weekend. And there's no transparency. He doesn't answer the phone. He walks back in the door Monday morning and tries to pick up being married to you Monday through Friday. And now things are starting to be a little different. Now it's not just the weekends that he's gone. Now he's over there Tuesday night, Thursday night. Now he's spending holidays with them instead of with you. And you're just becoming more of a shell of who you are. You're being completely drugged down, lost in this whole situation. You can't even enjoy holidays. You can't even enjoy life. That is not. Remember we talk about becoming better, not bitter? This isn't even bitter. This is not thriving. This is not surviving. This is you being pulled right down into the pit of deception and the enemy. And that needs to change, and you need to get out of that situation. And I know that this is probably going to touch some people in the wrong way. And if you want to talk to me about this, that's fine. But I have seen way too many women pulled down into situations because they thought they were doing what the standing rule requires. Am I telling you divorce? Absolutely not. I would never, ever tell someone to divorce unless they were the other woman, the other man, and they walked into a situation where they stole someone's husband or wife. Would I tell you to divorce? Absolutely. Would I go to God first and make sure I was giving the direct, information, the correct information? Yes, I would, because I don't do things on my own, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who needs to step away because they're being destroyed. And they need to get with God and let that spouse go for a season. And follow God's direction on what to do. So that was a really hard question to answer, but, I've seen it enough. Would I have given this information in the very beginning? Probably not, because I hadn't understood what was going on. But over time, I have seen it. Not a lot. It's not the normal situation. It's very rare. I would say out of all the standing situations I've seen, it's only less than a handful. Less than a handful. So it's just, if you are just becoming, if you have a spouse who basically has set it up to you that this is the way it's going to be forever, and he has no desire to ever give up that other woman, and he wants you to be okay with it. He wants to play house with you and share and make this one big happy joint family. You need to reach out to me and we need to talk. Okay, so the next question, and it really does remind me of what was going on with me. And this was about a spouse who was living at home, and she knows that the husband is still communicating with the other woman. And she can feel that her situation, her husband is still distant with her. He's not angry, he's not mean, he's not cold, but he's still distant. He's still sleeping in the other room. And she's being told that her behavior is letting him have his cake and eating it too. Should she kick him out? She's asking, do I bring the consequences? Do I, stop this from going on? And this is the situation that I can share, that what God showed me to do for me, okay? God's told me that, no, I was not to be a consequence. I was not to kick my husband out. I needed to step aside and let God deal with my husband, his son. Let God handle what was going on. So this was a completely different situation than the one I had just described before, where, where the woman was really losing herself, because it forced me to draw closer, and I started to grow, to thrive. I personally became better in my faith, in my relationship with God. It did not destroy me at all. It grew me into a, more secure person while I was living in a very insecure situation. You see the difference? Did I succumb to, horrible depression? No, I became better. Even though I was going through intense suffering, if you look at a rough cut diamond, under the pressure, okay, it starts to shine. It becomes more recognizable as a diamond. That's what was happening to me as I was going through the suffering, as I was going through the cutting, the pruning. All these awful, awful things were coming off me as I was in a situation that was horrible. Okay, I was living in a situation where my husband was out enjoying his life. That's what the whole persona was, that I get to live my life now and do what I want. No one can tell me what I can do and what I can't do. He would make this big old show of, I get to live my life. He even had a little song, and I get to go where the wind blows. I can be spontaneous. If I leave work and I decide I'm going to disappear for days, I get to do that. And that was his deception. That was his stronghold that he would say. But you know what? After he did it, he would sit in the guilt and the shame and the condemnation for days and come to me and say, I am sorry. I know that was wrong, and I know I shouldn't have done it, and I feel bad, and I don't know how to get out of it. And that's what he would say. And then a few days or a week would go by, and you'd start to see that attitude come back, because the temptation would start to come. And he would put on this big, I get to do whatever I want, and I'm never going to overcome this, and this is going to be who I am, and you can't tell me no. And I wasn't at that time challenging him anymore. I'd seen it enough times to know, Sheila, just let God deal with him. Did it hurt? Yes. Did it cause a little bit of fear and anxiety? Yes. But what was happening was it was teaching me to run to God, learn how to find peace in that, learn how to be comforted from God, learn how to overcome the fear, while my husband was battling his own temptations, his own snares, his own places in him that, I'm sure, and I know he sat afterwards and thought to himself, why did I do that? Why am I destroying my family? Why? My wife is pregnant. Why am I disappearing for days? Why am I hurting her? Why am I making her cry? Who have I become? And then he would go through those, places where he would ask himself those questions. And then he would go through the hardening of the heart where he just didn't care. He would do what he was going to do, and then he would come back to that place of, what did I just do? Round and round and round, he would go through those situations, but he was growing through it. He was learning through it. He was seeing himself, and he was healing. I know this sounds crazy, but there was healing in that, because he did start to change. He did start to come out of it. He did start to get to the places where what he desired and what he loved and what he was getting out of those situations were now starting to disgust him. Now he didn't like something that he thought he loved. Because in the beginning he was like, oh wow, I love this. This is going to be me, and I'm going to enjoy this for a long, long time. And then it started to change where he didn't like it anymore. Then it started to change where while he was in the situation, he didn't like it. I started getting texts from him in the situation. Why am I here? I shouldn't be here. He started to come home in certain times sooner. And he would say, yeah, I was right in the middle of it thinking, why am I here? I shouldn't be here. So see how, where before it would be days and days and days of enjoying himself. And he didn't have that conviction. He started to heal through it. He started to see himself. So that was his consequence. It wasn't, I'm telling you right now, my 50 million texts, my phone calls, that just made him harden his heart even more. It was when I left him alone and I didn't send him any more texts. I didn't meet him in the driveway. I didn't yell at him for his actions. I didn't have those long lectures that I would set up and do the next day. None of that did anything. It was when he got to hear just himself. He got to be quiet with just himself and God. That's when the consequences, that's when the insight came. So no, you don't need to be that consequence. No, you don't need to sit your husband down and have that talk with him. Let God do it. Let God be the one that deals with your spouse. Okay, so the last question I'm going to do for the day is how to find the balance between praying for them and focusing on your own healing over the situation. Is it okay to block them from your mind? Okay, so I've shared many times in many of my videos, the transformation that took place in me, how I was obsessed. Everything about me was praying for him, praying for his freedom, to the point where I was fighting the enemy off of him instead of praying for him to fight the enemy himself. So I was in there just, praying from the wrong. I was praying from a place of fear, praying from a place of control. I was completely obsessed with my husband, with what he was doing. I was obsessed with the details. I was obsessed. And that was my journey of God breaking me out of that control, breaking me out of that fear, breaking me out of that, obsession, getting me to a right, better relationship with God. And once I got to that place, then I was able to pray correctly. I was able to pray, God, this is about your relationship with your son. More importantly, than it's about my marriage and my pain and my this and my that. So see how I evolved. So when we say and we ask, how do you find the balance? You're right. You are out of balance most likely. If you are obsessed, you can't think straight. All you think about is, God, get them out of this so my pain stops. Now, you might not say it that way. You might be completely about, God, save them, set them free. But it's all rooted and motivated in because you're hurting. So God is trying to get you to transition from a place of all of your security, all of your hope, all of your expectations are on the spouse. And that's why you'll pray from that place. Once he transitions you over and you evolve, because your relationship is now starting to change. Now God is more important. Now God has become your security. Now God is your hope. Now your expectations are on God. Now you're shifting into that place in your life, right? Now your whole world isn't your spouse like it was, but you're still praying for your husband. You're still praying for your wife, right? That is your spouse. But you're now praying from a place of understanding, compassion, mercy. You're praying from a place of security. Okay? So if you think of, let's just say that you are, with the war going on right now, you are living in that war. You are living with any moment, a bomb, guns, any moment, the invasion. You're living in that place. You are living in a place where you are in survival mode, right? You are in jeopardy. You're in a situation you're not safe, right? Your prayers are going to be different if you are living in the war zone, right? You're going to be praying, God, save me, protect me, keep me safe, keep me alive. keep the enemy from finding us, keep the enemy away. That's going to be your prayers, right? Now imagine the rescue plane comes, you get on the plane, you leave that, and you go to a different country. Now things are different. Now you're no longer in danger, right? You're no longer in danger. But your heart is still very much focused on what is going on now in your home country. Okay, so let's understand what I'm trying to say, that you have now been removed out of the danger zone. Now you're secure, right? You are secure. You're not in danger. There's no way that, that war is going to come to your door in this other place. But you also know that you know where your heart is, right? Your prayers are going to be different now. Now you're praying from a place of, your heart's broken, but you're praying from a place, a physical place where you are now secure, you're safe, and you don't have that fear of any moment something horrible, So that's what I'm saying about when you're transitioning from a place of fear and imminent danger. And that's what happens to a lot of us. I remember the terror. I remember that feeling that any moment, I just felt I was in the enemy's, grip. And so when you are becoming more and more in your relationship with God, more and more understanding of who He is, and you become more secure, you start to transition, you start to pick up, and you start to walk out of that place of fear, that place of torment, and you become more grounded in Him, more rooted in Him. You still pray for your spouse. You still pray for your spouse, because now you don't ever want to go back to that situation of danger. Now you want to pray your spouse comes out of that situation and comes over to the place where you're at. You're secure in God. You're rooted in God. You know who you are. You found your identity. You found your purpose in Him. So you don't pray to ever go back into that war zone. You pray your spouse comes out of it, and they find the Lord. They find who they are in Him. So that's the transition that you get to. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for joining me in another question and answer. And again, keep the questions coming. Please give this video a like, and if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. I am considering, and we might do this, but I am considering doing a live stream from the YouTube itself. It's just something I am thinking about. And so if you want to get notified if I do that live stream, I believe how it works is you have to be you have to subscribe and make sure your notifications are on. So when I do go live, I will do some announcements before that I'm gonna, be doing maybe a live stream on a Friday night or a Saturday night or something, but you will get notified prior to that as well. And if you are on the Zoom notification list, if you've signed up for that, I would probably send out a notification letting our Zoom community know that I'm going to be doing a live stream through YouTube. It's something I'm praying about. I've never done it before. So, pray for me in that area. I might do that. So, all right. God bless you guys, and stay tuned. I probably will be doing another one of these tomorrow.